You know what? Let's start off the bat with Kevin in Florida, who says that God knows more than we do, so it doesn't make sense to question him. Kevin, how do you know that God even exists, much less knows more than we do?
Well, I really was having struggles with the cause community to come up what I really wanted to talk about. And I just have two sides to this. One, I think you guys would agree with, and the other, I called to just get your perspective. So if you could just give me a couple of seconds to explain.
You've got 1 minute.
Okay.
You got 1 minute.
Let's just say theoretically, God is real, and we're living in a world where we do believe that. You and me and the other gentleman on the line. I compare that to me, and I have two kids, two boys, my sons. And there's a lot of things, a lot of times that as their father, I have them do that they like and things that they don't like. Me being 28 years old, them being 6 and 7, I don't understand how we could ever be on the same page. Sometimes in my home, I have to play good cop, bad cop with their mom when I'm doing things that I know they're going to have a problem with, but I'm doing it because I love them. I'm doing it because I know, I've done it before. I've seen what they're going to go through, but I don't spend a lot of time with some things explaining this to my 6 and 7-year-old kid, because I think it wouldn't make any sense to even act like they're going to follow me on certain things. So that's what my question is. If there is an all-knowing, all-powerful creator being, how do we expect to make sense of the things that he has done or would ask us to do? I just want to get your retort on that.
Yeah. So first of all, your analogy falls apart. For instance, my dad would be a complete idiot to try and tell me what to do when it comes to computers, because I've been a software engineer for now over 30 years. So yeah, when I was 5, did my dad know more than I did? Yeah. When I was 16, did he know more about technology than I did? No. Did he know more about other life issues? Yes. Does he know more about my life and the decisions I've made and whether they were good or bad now? No. So that's the problem with your analogy, right? As we grow as human beings, we develop different interests, and those interests leads to different expertise in different areas. My dad is barely keeping up with the modern world, and so his opinion on the modern world is becoming less and less valuable because he's less and less engaged with it. And so all these things are true things. When it comes to God, you're having us make an assumption, and the answer to that would be, I would expect a God to be able to see the reason behind what he's telling us to do and not do. And let's just pick the LGBTQIA question, right? And it's not really a question, it's just fact. There's nothing about the Bible that is factually true on this case. Because we know, you just take a look at some of the stuff that we know for a fact. We don't even have to go into all of the science behind it, but just the fact that they're intersex people tells us that if you go and say, well, God created Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, well, he also created people who have both such genitalia. He also created people women who have testosterone levels that you normally see in the average man, and things like this. And we just take a look at biology around us and see that everything he's told us makes no sense. We could look at something like Leviticus 14, which tells us how to cleanse defiling skin diseases, and realize that doesn't work at all for anything. You're cleaning yourself off and you're shaving everything off, so that might help in some certain situations, but it's not going to solve most of the skin diseases we're aware of. And yet the Bible claims this is the case. God says things like, thou shalt not tell a lie. But here's my question for you on this one: is telling a lie to save someone else's life okay? And where do you get that out of the Bible, right?
You don't. And you mind if I respond to that really quick? Any modern day human being would have issues with the Bible and some of the things that God asked us to do. I think we can all agree on that, right? I feel like anybody that has strong faith should still have some issues with what is said in there. The only difference I would say is when you use the example with your dad is if we're theoretically speaking, talking, your dad is not a all-powerful, all-knowing being. So we're assuming that that person or whomever, whatever we want to call him, in that book is real. I don't think there would be any drawback as it would be with your father. I think he would know everything.
No, my point is that as we grow, we change and our knowledge bases change. And you have to keep up with that. That God knows everything isn't really kind of the point. And knowing everything, I've got issues with that anyway. But I think it's mostly about we change as we grow. And so what was good for me when I was 16 is no longer good for me. And that changes, right? And that changes because I am my own person. I am an individual and I have some degree of free will. And that's a whole different debate I don't want to go into. But that's basically what I was trying to say with that is we change as we grow. And what was good for us before is no longer good for us now.
Kevin, do you believe in a particular, is there a particular God that you that you personally believe in or that you are advocating for?
Sure, Yeshua, Jesus, Christianity, okay. I would say more Judaism, but
let me take a stab at the question that I thought I heard you asking, which was how do we as human beings make like evaluations and assessments about gods, right? As finite beings, how do we make assessments about these allegedly infinite beings? And what I want to draw your attention to is that there are theists of all stripes will make claims about the attributes that their gods have, that the gods that they believe in have. And the simple answer to your question is that we would use the same exact tools that we would use to evaluate claims about anyone with respect to these gods. Like if somebody was to say about, like, say my parents, for example, if someone was to tell me, hey, I think that your dad has, like brown hair. I could use the tools of reason and critical thinking and logic and skepticism and all that shit to look at my dad and go, does my dad have brown hair? Is that claim consistent with reality? And we would do the same thing with respect to any claims people are making about the attributes, the desires, etc., of any given god. So yeah. And we can approach this from two different directions too, because there is this underlying question of does God exist? So we can go down that route, or we can be like, okay, well, does this book say God is this way? And we could evaluate the same way that we could evaluate any other work of fiction talking about any other character.
So I'm definitely not going to take up too much more of your time. I want to wrap up, I guess, what my punchline is to this whole thing is what I was going for was obviously there's a lot of things in the Bible, a lot of things that God has asked people to do that I myself would never do or would tell.
There's a lot of things that books
like
does.
I said, right. And like I said, any modern day human being or believer would have a problem with it, I believe, and I guess they should. But I guess my punchline to this, what I'm getting at here is beyond the existence. Does it make sense to say, if I tell my son, no, you can't come home, not take out the trash, not do what your mom has asked you to do, and play Fortnite with your buddy for 7 hours, when his buddy says, well, my mom lets me play all day and lets me do whatever I want to. And he comes home and he's like, Dad, why are you so mean to me? Why does Kingsley get to do this, that, and the other? My point is that because I'm his father, and I think any decent father would understand where I'm coming from, the point is he's never going to see it my way. He can't use any reasoning.
This is like saying, how can any of us who don't have Sith Jedi powers evaluate the actions of Darth Vader?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't have to be force sensitive to question Darth Vader.
And I think my response to that is going to be, but my response to that would be what you should be doing is helping your son to develop a framework to make good decisions.
Yeah.
And not just blindly follow rules, which, I mean, blindly following rules can get you into trouble. And that's part of the problem with a lot of God's so-called rules. They will get you into trouble. If you take, and you didn't answer this question, I'd like to get back to it. If you take thou shalt not lie and follow that exactly, and you're in a situation where if you tell a lie, you can save a life. If you tell the truth, they will die. What do you do?
Yes, I would tell the lie. I would tell.
Right, and you'd break the commandment, right? And that's the problem with the rule. because the rule does not give you conditions. It doesn't set up a goal for you to try and measure your actions by. The goal is do this, go to heaven, do this, go to hell. That's all you've got. You have no if statements. It's all do. Right. That's what rules are. That's what rule following is. Do this, do this, do this. Right. It's why you do it. And it's why when you're cooking, you follow a recipe. Do this, do this, do this. You end up with a cake. Right. And that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to end up at something that actually makes sense. And I don't know what God's goal is. Right. My personal goal is human happiness, happiness of the entire population of humanity as a whole. And I can judge my actions against that goal, but I don't know what God's only purpose seems to be worshiped. Those are the first 3 commandments, right?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead. I mean, God seems to be a narcissist. He wants to be worshipped. That's his goal. Anything that doesn't get you, that doesn't move you closer to that goal is bad. Anything that moves you away from that goal is, or excuse me, vice versa. Anything that moves you away from that goal is bad. Anything that moves you closer to that goal is good. He just wants to be worshipped. He doesn't care about good or evil.
Okay, and now there's just one more thing. There was something you said I should be developing a framework for my son to make good decisions. Agree. And there's many times where we do sit down and we have conversations, and I've explained to him about many things. Listen, this is why this is the way it is, and this is why it has to be. And there are many times where he understands, and I see him making better decisions. What I want you guys to really pretty much say, I agree or disagree on, and I'm fine with either answer. That's why I wanted the response isn't there going to be things, no matter what I say, that there's no way he's going to understand?
Well, that's a you problem, not your son problem. You, as the communicator, are responsible for making sure what you're attempting to communicate is understood by the receiver on the other end. So are there things that you're not going to be able to communicate, that you're never going to be good enough to communicate? Sure, we're human. That's just the way life is. Does that have anything to do with anything else? No. You just need to recognize that sometimes you're not going to be able to express it in such a way that your son understands it, but somebody else might be.
Well, and I would just say no. Because, like, I mean, your son, as they grow, as they, mature, as they gain an understanding of the world, they'll understand that there are reasons behind why you would say the things that you say. They might not get it right away, but they can learn. Mm-hmm. And even, I mean, with some people and their parents, sometimes the answer is just, mom or dad's a little fucked up. That's why they told me to do this thing. I mean, they can get it. They can gain an understanding of your reasons. So again, like to try to act like this is analogous to like the character of a god, it might be more analogous than you think, in fact, because like if you were to like read the Bible and just look at the character of Yahweh like you would any other character in any other work of fiction, you can think about it like you would if you were thinking about Darth Vader or Voldemort or somebody, and you can be like, all right, what are the underlying motivations of this character? And Jim's nailing it. It's worship. That is first and foremost, that is the purpose of creation in scripture, in the Bible, is to worship God, to bring glory to God. That's it. So we can look at this and go, okay, well, what does this say about this supposed God that's posited here, and make assessments about it like we would any other character.
Okay. Listen, guys, I agree with you. The only thing that anybody has said that I disagree with, and I'm not trying to spark up another part of the conversation. You guys have got other calls. I agree what you're saying. The only thing that I disagree with is when Jim just said that would be a me problem. I think majority of us know that there's a developmental stage with a child, like you said, and they learn and they grow. But my son being 7, there's no way, Jim, that it's all me if there's certain things he cannot comprehend.
Well,
you
missed. Yeah, you shortened what I said way too much. I said it's a you problem. There are times when you're not going to be good enough to explain it. That's being human. So yes, there are going to be times when you can't explain a concept to somebody, right? And you can explain concepts very simply, and you can give them a very surface level understanding of how things work. We do this all the time in school, especially with science. The science you learn in high school, the same set of classes that you learn in college are going to be different and more in depth. And somewhat you learned in high school is going to be, yeah, that's mostly correct, except under all these circumstances, or that's just a good stopping point for that topic, and we're going to go into more in depth here. So you can explain it to a degree to anybody, and there's always a communication problem, right? We're not good communicators across the spectrum, and times it's going to be. Communication is much more complicated than we give it credit for.
Yeah.
So that's the entire thing on it. It's a you problem because you're communicating and you're responsible for the message, but it's also sometimes you're just not going to be good enough.
Notice though also that you don't have the benefit of, like, the God that you find in the Bible is supposed to be all powerful and all knowing and desires a relationship with his creation. So if that God wanted to create the creation in such a way that that creation could comprehend his goals and what he wants and all this stuff, could have done it.
Mm-hmm.
Could have made it plain and skipped all the games.
Yeah. And that's also why good teachers are so valuable.
And I'm definitely heading out after this, but to respond to you, that's just me circling around to the point to, I agree with you. Why didn't he just give me all the answers? But I'm not sure, like my son, why he wouldn't give us all the answers. Like, I don't know.
We never said give us all the answers. What we said was give us a framework in which to discover the answers.
Capacity.
Right. And we found a framework, we call it science, or the scientific method, that gets us as close to the truth as we can possibly get, that works nearly every time it's tried. And yet faith doesn't work every time it's tried, right? And so we have a framework, and that framework seems to indicate that the likelihood of a God is very, very low, so low that it might as well be zero. And I'm not saying it is zero, I'm just saying it's close to zero. So that's part of the problem, right? He didn't give us the scientific method.
Yeah, we had to come up with
I got you. Guys, I appreciate it. I needed a different perspective about it. And I think, I got a lot of good information out of this. And I hope you guys understood my bottom line.
Yeah.
Think so? Yeah, have a good one.
Yeah. Take it easy. Have a good one.